Welcome, everyone. Thank you very much for joining us today. I'm Andrea Rigon, an associate professor at the Bartlett Development Planning Unit at University College London, and I'm chair of Catalytic Action. First of all, I would like to acknowledge that today UK universities, including UCL, are on strike for very important reasons, and that we support that. They are asking to address the gender, ethnic, and disability pay gap and contract casualization, tackle the rising workloads, and protect their pensions. But because this event involved many other external partners, we decided to run it anyway, but remaining in full solidarity with the ongoing strike. Today, we are very fortunate to have live interpretation offered by the final year interpreting students from London Met University. And you can choose your language below under interpretation. You can see it on your screen. Puedes mirar abajo ahí para poner interpretación y puedes escoger el canal con el idioma que necesiten. And so we will have interpretation in Spanish and Arabic, and the event will be in English. You can also use the Q&A function below that you should see on your screen to write your questions in any of the three languages at any point during the presentations. So you don't have to wait for the end. If you have a question, you can put it there and we will take them at the end. Displacement is at the world record high. Children make up about half of the refugee population worldwide and 40% of the 80 million displaced people globally. And the duration of displacement is also increasing, with protracted refugee situations now lasting an estimated average of 26 years. And 60% of refugees and even a higher percentage of internally displaced people live in urban areas. And most refugees move to neighboring developing countries, and many of these live in urban areas, often in the poorest cities, poorest towns and neighborhoods, living side by side with the most vulnerable host population. And this can create social tensions as displaced and host communities live in overcrowded areas, sharing limited services. Therefore, children often suffer from poor access to quality public spaces, learning spaces, and play spaces. And we know that quality of spaces available to children has an important impact on child development and well-being. And children's experiences of displacement are very diverse and influenced by a number of personal and contextual factors and shaped by their gender, age, ability, personality, family structure, and culture. And therefore, the responses must be tailored to the realities of children affected by displacement in a particular context. And today we use the term children affected by displacement that refers both to displaced children and children of host communities who are also affected by displacement. Our core assumption is that children are agents and rights holders. They are powerful co-creators of knowledge and experts in their own lives. And when we set out to do these projects, what we set out to do with this project was really to understand the role of co-designed built interventions with children affected by displacement and their communities. And we find out that this project could empower children and have a lasting positive impact. It could improve social cohesion, inclusion, and integration between refugees and host communities, and have a positive impact on the local economy, build capacity, and provide employment. And it could also deliver better social infrastructures, such as child-friendly urban public spaces, schools, and playgrounds. However, despite the positive impact of co-design built intervention with children, there is an undersupply because such interventions require specialized skills, resources, and ethical guidelines. They require professionals with different specialists to work together, and often organizational structures do not make these collaborations easy. They require such projects a larger investment compared to the funds required only for the built product. But the major constraint is that their additional value is sometimes difficult to recognize because it is long-term, difficult to measure, and broader than the built intervention itself. These interventions often present multiple operational challenges linked to safeguarding and cultural norms. And this prevents many organizations from taking on such projects, despite the strong need for children's voices to be part of design responses to displacement context. While there are fantastic resources on related themes and issues, we felt the need for specific practical tips, examples, and templates. And we identified the need for a single document that could provide an overview of all different components so that a mayor, for example, could understand the educational process needed in such projects. A civil engineer could understand the role of children and teachers in the construction, and the child protection officer could see how the capacity building and employment of parents, if properly managed, could benefit children. So we wanted to create a document that would allow all these professionals with different languages and priorities to understand each other's role in these complex processes. But to avoid reinventing the wheel, we reviewed hundreds of existing toolkits, guides, handbooks, templates, studies, and created an open access searchable database where all these documents are reviewed and stored. The handbook that we created linked to the best existing documents on every aspect of the process. We spoke to dozens of caregivers, educators, humanitarians, NGOs, social workers, engineers, psychologists, designers, volunteers, municipal board members, procurement officers, civil servants, contractors, and experts across different fields. And most importantly, we built on over 1,500 children who participated in catalytic action co-design processes. And understanding the challenges faced, what worked well and not so well, we set out to work on this handbook. In particular, we were interested in aspects that are not normally covered in any other resource. For example, how can you set up the procurement process to have a positive impact on the local economy, or to ensure that contractors build the capacity and employ community members, including parents? Or how can you identify safe construction activities and materials to involve children directly? And this document has been carefully reviewed by experts at UNICEF and UN Habitat. And in particularly, we want to thank Thomas George and Cecilia Anderson, who led this process respectively at UNICEF and UN Habitat. And we also want to thank Sudeshna Chatterjee at Action for Children's Environments, who coordinated the review process. And now I would like to leave the floor to Deford Aubrey, UN Habitat Interregional Advisor. Please, Deford.
Thank you so much, Andrea. A pleasure to join you again on this discussion about the DESID tool. And you're just coming from UN Habitat. I work currently in a global role as an interregional advisor, and a lot of my work is based on advice to governments on managing displacement in urban areas. So I've recently been involved with the contributing to the high-level panel on displacement and looking at some of the sort of policy approaches that we hope that will be adopted by member states relating to managing displacement. And we've brought a strong urban dimension into that. But one thing that's coming strongly in that discussion is the role of, first of all, local authorities as key respondents to displacement, but also the role of planning. And it considers that displacement needs to be considered mainstreamed into planning processes, either to make cities more adaptable for change, and how can planning help that, but also how can planning help a process when cities are faced with displaced populations and a sudden population increases. And then related to that, the report also picks out and really encourages community-based planning. And when we have community-based planning, that's where communities can co-own the product of the planning. They feel that they can be listened to. They can feel that they have a certain stake in what's being planned. And so the panel report on the Secretary General's panel report on internal displacement strongly recognizes the role not only of planning, but of community-based planning. And we see very much that when public spaces and public assets are co-designed with people who live in the communities, that these spaces, these assets represent the needs of the community much better, but also they're looked after much better, they're used much better, because people feel that they partly own this. And I think this co-design process really reinforces ownership. Now, when we consider people who are displaced, they come into cities, often they don't know anyone when they move into that city. Maybe there's some relatives or some distant connections somehow, but people don't plan to move. They suddenly move because they need to. They're under threat, and they arrive at the most convenient place that they can find. There, they may often end up in an informal settlement, and they haven't got that sort of social network around them. They haven't got that this social network that they normally experience in their own cities. And so this process to me is an incredible process of communities actually being able to displaced communities actually being able to work with host communities to co-design something, which then helps them to feel that actually they belong in that place. They have something that they've contributed, and it really helps that process of social cohesion. And I'm sure we'll be hearing later from Mariam how this is not just a process of designing a space or something, a useful asset, but is more than that. It's a very deep process, it's a psychosocial process in a way that enables people to be recognized, to be seen, and to belong. And I think creating together gives that opportunity of doing things together, making things together, helps people to actually know each other. And I think children don't need, it's very difficult to communicate sometimes directly. The children are traumatized. They might not want to talk about their experience of the place that they've left or the experience of arriving. But somehow making something together, doing something together with a focus, it really helps to then for these children to actually start to know each other. And for example, if I want to have a conversation with my teenage son, for instance, sometimes he doesn't want to sit direct and talk about the issue, but if we're making something together or driving somewhere together, doing something together, that creates that sort of neutral space to allow one another to really know each other. And I think that's also what it's creating. This co-creating process actually creates that sort of neutral space where people are unthreatened and they can just start to know each other. And the other thing I think which is important about it is that often host communities have a negative attitude towards incoming populations. Usually there's some solidarity to begin with, but you find that over time that solidarity starts to wane away, particularly since they see, they perceive a competition for resources. They see a competition for, water. They see the rents are going up. They see the garbage is piling high. And sometimes over time, there's a sort of a fatigue that sets in, and that initial solidarity starts to wear out. And I think by the fact that you're building something together, it's almost like the displaced populations have brought an asset into that community, because it's because they're there that that project is now being funded and being built. So I think that also provides a really positive message that these displaced populations are bringing something into the host community. And I think that also really helps this idea of host community acceptance. So I'm a real big fan of this idea of co-creation from many, many different angles. And I'm really glad that that the Bartlett School, that UCL has taken it forward and developed this into a handbook. We really need to strongly promote this and see it go to scale. We'd love to see it to be in the DNA of humanitarian organizations, etc., that are responding to displacement crisis. I'd also love to see if there's a way of funding it, maybe creating a fund that can also leverage diaspora funding, maybe from companies, to be able to have, to be able to build maybe some kind of global fund that enables this to just be mainstreamed well into displacement crisis. And I'd love to have a further conversation about how do we take it up and take it to scale. But congratulations to Andrea and the team. It's been great to be part of this, but we really hope now that there's a strong uptake amongst NGOs and others to really see this becoming mainstreamed in response to displacement. Back to you, Andrea.
Thank you very much, David. And thank you particularly for your last comments. This is what we really hope that this handbook will generate, an understanding that this can become a standard practice in responding to displacement. And it's a very positive sign that both UNICEF and UN Habitat have joined forces with us to produce this, and we look forward to thinking about the financial tools to scale this up. There is plenty now of evidence, including the handbook, that this works. Now it's really about scaling that up. And now over to Joanna Dabaj, Principal Coordinator at Catalytic Action, who will guide you through the handbook.
Thank you, Andrea. Hi, everyone. Today, I will be presenting the DCID handbook. The handbook is divided in 3 parts. Part A is about designing with children. Part B talks about procurement and building. And Part C about post-building, impact, and sustainability. We included a number of step-by-step tools and templates that practitioners will be able to download and engage with children in co-design activities. In addition to this, throughout the handbook, we present many examples of projects or simply scenarios and stories from real projects. This was done to keep things as practical as possible, even when explaining more theoretical concepts. Moving to the handbook contents in a bit more details. Part A, designing with children. This is the core section of the handbook. For us, design refers to the entire process linked to a built intervention, starting with an idea and leading to a built product. This understanding is different from other approaches that limit design just to the act of drawing a space. So when we say designing with children, we also mean to engage the children in generating an idea, building a partnership, discussing funding, researching needs, and so on. Some of the key messages from Part A are: children must be at the center of the co-design process. The process of designing spaces with children requires careful planning, including the preparation of tools appropriate to the context and to the participants. Children should be engaged through playful and fun activities, and good facilitation is key for successful participatory engagement. Also, when working with children in vulnerable contexts, the design choices that are linked to selection of building materials have a major impact. For example, if we are building a school in a refugee settlement and we select building materials available locally and we purchase them from small businesses run by parents of the children who will be attending the school, this will have indirectly an impact on children's well-being as the project is supporting their families. Equally, we can generate the same impact when we hire local labor. For example, having fathers and mothers of the children who will be later on attending the school joining the construction site. Part B, procurement and building. This part is a bit more technical, but it is really important. And in fact, many practitioners found these topics presented here to be a major barrier to implementing co-designed built interventions within their organizations. In fact, even if we engage children in coming up with ideas and in developing solutions, then these solutions need to be built. And due to this nature of this work and what I just explained about generating impact and empowerment during the construction process, it becomes fundamental to also pay attention to this phase. For example, we have a responsibility to ensure the health and safety of the people who build these spaces, which in many cases are the parents of the children we are working with. But also, if you want to deliver innovative design solutions that are durable, built with local materials and skills, then we must develop ways to engage with procurement, not just as a bureaucratic step of the process, but as an important one. And only by approaching procurement differently and by placing children's well-being at the center of it, we would be able to implement innovative solutions such as the widest slide in Lebanon, which was the result of a collaboration with multiple providers, and that was a direct answer to what kids wanted, and I quote, "a slide large enough so I can play with all my friends." Lastly, part C, post-building impact and sustainability. What we present in this section is that it is important to also think, how can we maximize the impact of a built intervention? For example, in this public park, we decided to maximize impact by setting up a Care for Our Park program, such as the Care for Trees, after we completed the rehabilitation. And the key question here is, how can we work with children to get the most out of the implemented intervention? And this collaboration with children that started with coming up with an idea, then it continued to develop design solutions, then to build, and that now extends to also post-building. Those projects that manage to get this comprehensive engagement are those that generate a very strong sense of ownership towards the space, and of course, they empower children. The last section of the handbook speaks about impact, and the key message is that co-design processes have an impact that goes beyond the physical product, and that is linked to the participatory process. This handbook is also available to navigate directly on the website, as you can see here. You can access the hands-on section, which is divided to the 3 parts that I explained before. Once you select a step, you will see the key points and a side menu to help you with the navigation and to know in which step you are. To also help navigation, we added a next and previous button so you can read steps in a linear order as on the PDF version. At the end of each step, you will find these icons that will take you to the library of all examples and tools available in the handbook. And at the top, you will find the option to filter them per step. Once you are in a step, you will find some colored boxes indicating tools and examples that you can access simply by clicking on them. And inside the examples, you will see a brief description of the project and some links to learn more about them. Inside some of the tools, you will find templates to download, which will show you the tool in more detail and a step-by-step guide to conduct the activity. The website also includes an output section where you can find thematic videos, briefs, and papers. And we also have an online library of resources where we collected books, articles, and reports that support the contents of the handbook. Thank you, everyone. Over to you, Andrea.
Thank you very much, Joanna, for this comprehensive presentation. And now I would like to invite Sonia Ilias, a program specialist on local governance at UNICEF Lebanon. Over to you, Sonia.
Hello, everyone. Thank you, Andrea. This is Sonia Ilias from Lebanon, a program specialist in local governance. I'm sharing my screen. Could you please, Andrea, confirm if you could see it?
We can see it. It's very clear and nice.
And I just opened my camera as well. So hello, everyone. Thank you for this opportunity, and thank you for the rich introduction and for the colleagues' input to this important topic. Honestly, UNICEF does a couple of things to strengthen the local programs engagement. Among these is the engagement with local authorities through our local governance programs. But first, I would like to share why at UNICEF we think local governance matters. And we have three very important reasons. Based on evidence, development for children and adolescents is a local effort. The fulfillment of the key child rights, such as access to improved goods and services, protection from shocks and stress, and participation in decision-making that affects their lives, they all occur at the local level. The second reason is local governments, along with local stakeholders, are actually responsible for ensuring access to basic services. And here I would like to refer to the most of the Sustainable Development Goals have targets that are directly or indirectly related to the work of local actors. It's been estimated that among the 169 SDG targets, at least 21% can only be implemented with local actors. And a further 24% should be implemented with local actors. So that would be a total of, I don't know, 45% of the 169 SDGs. The third main reason of why we think local governance matters also is if we flip the whole rationale, obstacles to improving child outcomes can be directly traced to local challenges. These local challenges that we're experiencing, at least in Lebanon, I would like to give examples of local data and evidence gap, insufficient local resources, limited opportunities for children and adolescents and their caregivers to influence local decision-making, to hold them accountable for the provision of services, unclear service delivery mandates by the public, limited coordination, and weak oversight. So that's why UNICEF in Lebanon works with local councils and administrations and communities, including children and adolescent actors, in what we call an area-based approach. Here we feel that we could make a difference. This work is based on, among many other things, a very important approach, which is active engagement and participation of local communities, mainly the most vulnerable children. Our work with these stakeholders evolves around ensuring child-sensitive governance and community-based protection mechanisms for any local authority aiming to address children and their needs, or any city council, for example, trying to make the city more child-friendly. There are a number of strategic elements that are to be considered. Here, we have the concept of child-friendly cities, which is a framework to assist a city to become friendly to children in multiple aspects, and not based on one ideal end state or standard model. They could start from any point. This concept aims at some behavioral change within these local communities through these elements that I'm showing here. The first one is children's participation, promoting active involvement of children in issues that affect them directly, in spaces that they are spending a lot of time in, listening to them and acting upon their views. And I think this is exactly what our partners, Catalytic Action, did in many of the projects that we have been supporting in the most vulnerable areas and in the areas that were directly affected in the port explosion in Beirut. Another element is policies and legal frameworks, whereby legislations and regulatory frameworks ensure children's rights. It's not only enough to work on it. We need also to have policies that dedicate enough articles and codes for that. A city or an area-wide strategy plan. These usually help to shift the efforts from one level to another by developing detailed and comprehensive agendas or plans based on the Child Rights Convention. Advocacy and awareness is a continuous effort for child rights throughout communities, throughout councils, throughout administrations. And since 2018, when we started shifting to focus a little bit more on local programming and working with local authorities, we could now see how we're harvesting the fruits of all of this awareness and sensitization that was dedicated and targeted to decision makers to be able to have their governance more sensitive to children. This also includes budgeting for children to ensure adequate resources are assigned for children's needs. They could be cross-cutting, they could be mainstreamed, but they could be also dedicated. And this is where we see more difference when they are dedicated. Coordination and partnership, horizontal and cross-sectoral coordination to maximize the impact of work, to build synergies, to leverage resources and pool them to achieve the local plans and the agenda all together. We try to convince the local authorities and administrations that they don't have to be the sole owners of resources to get things done. They could bring multiple actors together. Once they have some sort of a roadmap that everyone could contribute to, then the end result would be all the same with probably less cost. On the data collection and knowledge generation front, a continuous assessment of children's situation, to be able to design programs and plans that are based on evidence, but also monitoring the progress and measuring the progress, and later on, of course, the impact. So we started directly engaging with local communities and local authorities in 2018, as I said. But then in 2019, the economic crisis hit in Lebanon. And then in 2020, COVID started. In August 2020, the Beirut port explosion happened. And since then, we have been responding to emergencies and supporting the recovery from the blast and from the pandemic as well. So there are a couple of things that we have learned, and I think it's very important to share with you all. We keep asking ourselves, has this shown any results for children? Is bringing children to participate and bringing them to the center of our efforts make any positive impact on them, or would it hurt them more by exposing them to to face what they are experiencing? It was very touching when the second day of the blast went down and activated the gardens within the port area that were closed because of the pandemic, and we mobilized our protection partners to start activities all day for children. A very simple contribution to parents that had their houses damaged. Only by knowing that we were there, they would keep their children with us for a couple of hours to go and clean their places from the damaged glass, or try to find or relocate to a safer place. So that was like something that we observed directly with the result. But then when children and members of the community participate in design and execution of spaces, not only design, their sense of ownership is much, much higher. And we have experienced this in Quarantina, and I'm sure Joanna and colleagues have, they have been living it every day. Vandalism decreased significantly and damaging the space when the children take care of their own space that they contributed to designing. Social cohesion for bringing community members together to work together and achieve a common objective contributes to a better cohesion and less tension. This girl that proposed to do a slide that is very wide, she said to us that she wants to hold her friend's hand when she is sliding because she feels safer. Learning and income generation. UNICEF implements a cash for work modality, whereby youth that are mainly out of school are trained on skills like construction and gardening, etc., that could be linked to such projects. So the impact of the modality is also positive to ensure sustainability and ownership of the space, but also to help these young men and women to generate income and to learn a skill. We learned children and adolescents are a vital agency during emergencies. They play a very important role in helping their families recover and in helping their communities recover. So during the COVID-19 response, for example, we have been working before that with a number of children to empower them, to learn about their rights. These children came together and they identified, for example, cyberbullying being one of the threats to their well-being during the time of the lockdown. So they came to local authorities and they told them, we want you to address this with our parents. So they started talking about it, peer-to-peer, parent-to-parent, municipalities raising awareness about cyberbullying. This has never happened before in Lebanon, whereby municipalities come and talk about these, what they call soft topics. Scout groups contributed to raising awareness among their own peers and families in very innovative and effective ways during the pandemic, whereby everyone was panicked. This helped them also to get busy during the lockdown. Community members come together during emergencies. We have seen this multiple times in Lebanon. Some support in providing tools to organize themselves. So organized community volunteers manage public parks within their neighborhoods and contribute to early identification of children at risk of violence. We call this community protection networks or community-based protection mechanisms. It could be a guard of the garden, it could be the shop owner in the neighborhood, it could be any individual who is part of this community. Once they observe a child at risk of violence, they could do this identification based on some skills that is transferred to them, some awareness, and they are connected to service providers through referral pathways, very simple referral pathways. And gardens are the best platform to facilitate this effort. Local spaces and services are the most reliable models to ensure community members access to services, especially when services are packaged and integrated on a minimum level in one hub or in one place that is walking distance from the households or from the neighborhood, and they are affordable, mainly in urban gatherings and poverty belts or in large cities. We have also noticed the importance of such service hubs, walking distance, providing minimum package of services, be it health, be it leisure, be it education, be it protection, so that families could reach to it within their neighborhoods. Because during the crisis, we have noticed that families lost mobility and the demand for basic services such as health declined dramatically. Routine immunization jeopardizes children's ability to thrive during their early years when it is low. So walking distance service centers proved to be very effective, especially those that are multi-sector services, as I mentioned.
Hi, Sonia, sorry to interrupt you. If you could come to a close, because we are over the time and
yeah. So I really wanted. Thank you, Andrea. I'm actually closing. I just want to close with saying that local community initiatives and networks are essential social protection schemes in times of disasters and failing states. Bringing children to the center of the social influence and community dynamic can really yield positive results. Thank you for the time and for the ears. Over.
Thank you so much, Sonia. This has been fantastic, especially emphasizing this idea that the participation of children is so important, as a huge impact, and is not a risk, but is actually even a protection measure. And you also fantastic to see how you emphasize the active role of children in the recovering process of an entire community, and especially that you brought the issues of how the participation of children can really change what happened after an interventions, and particularly emphasizing also the process of capacity building and employment. Thank you so much. And now over to Mariam Nazal, Social Development Coordinator of the Urban Governance Unit at UN Habitat Lebanon.
So, hi everyone. So thank you for the opportunity, and congratulations to all the colleagues who have contributed to the development of this toolkit, this comprehensive toolkit. So Andrea, if you can just share the screen, the presentation, please. Thank you. So I'll start by giving just next, please. Okay, I'll be talking during this presentation about the Minecraft as a tool as a participatory tool to engage the children in co-designing their built environment. And I'll give a brief description about two case studies in Nabha and Mar el-Khair. Starting with the background about the public spaces in Lebanon. So next, please. So Lebanon's population is estimated to be 5.9 million, close to 90% who are living in urban areas, spread over an area of 10,000 square kilometers. And Lebanon has the highest number of displaced persons per capita in the world, so 1 every 4, and suffers from a shortage of public spaces resulting from the increased urbanization, paralleled with the lack of proper regulations and planning. In addition to that, to being scarce, many existing public spaces are inaccessible or privatized. Moreover, Lebanese community lacks awareness around the right to the city and the importance of public spaces. Next, please. Giving just a brief rationale behind this. So as you all know that public spaces was shaped in the Sustainable Development Goal 11, which indicates that by 2030, cities should provide universal access to safe, inclusive, accessible, and green public spaces, particularly for children, women, persons with disabilities, and elderly. Also, in the new urban agenda, the public spaces are being promoted. UN Habitat Lebanon program is working on achieving these goals through a set of objectives aligned with the framework of the Global Public Space Program, which includes the design and implementation of public space projects that can benefit the vulnerable communities, particularly children, through the usage of participatory approaches and smart tools. And one of the smart tools that are being used is the Minecraft game. Next, please. So in a nutshell, we can say that since 2012, UN Habitat has been collaborating with Mojang, who are the makers of the Minecraft, in addition to Microsoft, on an innovative public-private partnership called Block by Block, in which the Minecraft tool, the computer game, was integrated into public space planning to get community members more involved. So the Minecraft, it's considered as an easy to use and cost-effective way to visualize a three-dimensional environment for rapid iteration and idea sharing. And this tool can be used by different groups, especially vulnerable ones, such as children, girls, women, refugees, and migrants, in addition to persons with disabilities and elderly. So people of all ages and backgrounds and education levels can pick up it quickly and helps them model their surroundings, visualize possibilities, and express ideas. Next, please. And now we will talk about how this tool can work. Yes. So the process starts, it's not a very long process, but it starts with selecting the sites to be redeveloped. And we create a Minecraft model of the existing site. So after choosing the site, we create a Minecraft model using the images, Google Maps, and other inputs. Then the beneficiaries who will participate in the workshop will be identified. And at this stage, we focus on identifying and involving people who are living and working near the site that is selected, and who are interested in being part of the process and interested in improving their urban environment. So at this stage, we ensure that we have a fair representation of the community, including children from the host and the refugee communities. We involve as well women, youth, older people, and people with person with disabilities. Then we move to organizing after identifying the participants we organize 2 to 4 days workshops. It depends on the needs, which is usually facilitated by a Minecraft expert. And during the workshop, participants first are briefed on the public space basics and general design considerations for the selected space, and we begin on sharing dialogue on relevant issues. Afterwards, the group goes out and walk together in the space. The group documents with images and reflects and observe what's on the site. After that, the group go back to the workshop location and the training starts on fundamental usage of the Minecraft. Then the participants they break onto 2 to 4 persons by group to develop ideas in Minecraft. Later, the teams start modeling and advocate for their ideas after finalizing all the models. So all participants by groups, they start presenting to the main stakeholders, which can be from the municipalities and other professionals. The workshop participants and stakeholders who were invited for the presentations start discussing on how to improve the public space, and they collaborate together to prioritize the main needs and propositions presented by the participants to improve the final Minecraft model that it's being developed. And this model, it's being transformed into architectural design, which is furtherly validated by the community through further communication with the community. Here, it's worth mentioning that the engagement of the community and specifically children goes beyond the workshop and goes beyond the stage. So children and other community members are usually encouraged to be part of the construction of the space and as well the maintenance and the monitoring of the space. So for instance, in one of the projects, in Nabaa project, so community members and specifically children were engaged to resolve the conflict that arose during the usage of this public space, and they were addressing unexpected problems related to the usage of this public space. Next, please.
Yes, and just one thing, you have 1 minute left.
Okay, so I'll just present quickly two cases. So in 2016, as a response to the Syrian crisis, UN Habitat Lebanon, with funding from Block by Block, worked closely with the municipality of Burj Hammou to design a vacant space in Nabaa. So the Minecraft workshop was held in presence of 14 Lebanese and Syrian children participants. So the group of these children focused on improving the safety of the space, and by proposing adding some amenities to the space, such as lighting, sanitation facilities, and plantings and outdoor games. This initiative has contributed to the improvement of the social cohesion between the two communities, who are the Lebanese communities and the Syrian communities, through the participation of these children. Moving to the next case study, that's now with after the Beirut port explosion, with funding as well from Block by Block, UN Habitat Lebanon, and Catalytic Action, with close coordination with the Beirut municipality, we are working together on rehabilitating 3 stairs that were affected by the Beirut blast, highly affected, and also through the Minecraft workshop and other participatory tools. The users of the stairs, particularly children, were offered an opportunity to express their opinions and ideas on how they perceive and how they envision the revitalization of these stairs. So around 27 children from different nationalities, Lebanese, Syrian, Jordanian, and Yemeni, have participated in this workshop. Next, please. So that was very brief. Next, just to conclude that based on our experience in Lebanon and using the Minecraft in different contexts in Lebanon, we can say that the Minecraft, it's a very powerful and useful tool to engage communities, particularly displaced children, in urban design processes, whereby those empowered children can easily reflect their perspectives and voice their needs. And with the usage of this tool, we facilitate a sense of ownership over the work done, and we foster dialogue between the different children coming from different communities. Thank you.
And thank you very much, Mariam, for that fantastic presentation. And now we have a little bit of time for some question. We got some reflection as well that I could start reading out. I love your approach to construction, drawing from local business. This can tie nicely to the advantages of vernacular architecture and the broader shift to including ecological and circular regional economies. We have another reflection about the great potential to promote regional regenerative agriculture through food system and recycling networks for inclusive job creation and local ecological circular entrepreneurships. And then we have another question, reflection that maybe we can address, that is, there is so much talk about displaced people. Frankly, they are refugees rather than displaced people. There's so much difference between refugees and displaced people. And maybe here we can just point out that we base this terminology on the fact that we want to include internally displaced people as well as refugees, and that also some countries do not recognize refugee status. So I think it's just about using a little bit of a terminology that include all the type of forced displacement, really. And within forced displacement, of course, a huge part, particularly in Lebanon, is about people who cross the national border from Syria, and therefore what we would normally call refugees, whether or not they are officially recognized as such by the governments there. And now a question from Camilla Rossi that maybe Joanna can then answer. Thank you for this fantastic seminar. This is such an urgent discussion to have, and looking at it from a child perspective is really illuminating. I was wondering, how do you address the issue that many children experiences displacement might be highly mobile due to eviction, relocations, further migration? I imagine this could affect their capacity to fully take part in such projects. Thank you. Maybe, Joanna, you can answer in reflection to the fact that many Syrian refugees went back to Syria, and so how does that affect such projects?
Yeah, thank you, Camila, for the question. I think it is very important before developing the activities and working with the children to also understand their needs, so also understand their background and what will be the time that they will be staying with us. This shapes a lot what we will do with the activities, but one very important answer that I also said in the presentation that would help that they fully participate is that we make them fun, we make them sensitive to their needs. We try to provide, even if for a small amount as possible, like we always advise to include playful activities, fun activities. It is not a homework and they're not forced to participate. Children have have the opportunity to participate, and we need to think that also if it's a very short time, that they're having fun, that they can meet new children, make new friendship, develop relationship with the facilitator. This alone will help them a lot in the in this phase that they're going through, I would say. Don't know if I answered, but that's what came to mind.
And there is a question, there is a longer reflection on the political approach, particularly in South America, to Venezuelan. And then there is a question from Pedro Mora on which strategy it's proved successful around the most problematic zones on the planet should be applied in South America to support the well-being to immigrants in order to rebuild their lives in the new country they are aiming to arrive. And maybe here I can, different people might have different ideas, but when we designed this handbook, the idea was that it was very much useful for the Latin American context, and particularly now where in a lot of cities there is a huge Venezuelan inflows. And we think we can draw on the experience from the Middle East to support people in Venezuela. And we have been presenting this to UN Habitat events in Latin America. And there is a fantastic program in Latin America run by Roy Kitty and overseen by the regional representatives, Elkin Velasquez. And we have been very much in touch with them. So we do think that this approach works for them as well. We went a little bit long on amazing presentation, so we don't have much time for many more questions, but I want to take the opportunity to thank all participants and speakers, and in particular thanks Veronica, Carolina, Mohammed, and Hebas, who interpreted for us today, and to our comms team, Alex, Ottavia, Dana, and Aisha, who work behind the scene to make this event possible. And if you received news of this event and you are here, is probably because they have worked in the communication. We just want to emphasize that we run a training sessions for free for your own staff about the handbook and about co-designing build intervention with children. So just get in touch with us. You can drop me an email or to Catalytic Actions. We will run and train your staff on this approach for free. So we have already done this with Save the Children, and we are in touch with other organizations. So we are very happy to come and do that. And don't forget to check the handbook and all the other outputs on the decide.co.uk website. That's decid.co.uk. And you can email me if you have any question or query at andrea.rigon@ucl.ac.uk. Thank you very much, everyone, and stay in touch with all of us.